Government must start fulfilling its most fundamental role:
Canada's Prime Minister made a promise.
defend Canadians.
This country will spend an extra $8.7 billion on defense by the end of March.
We believe that the CAF has the latest in technology.
No wonder defense contractors here are eager to show off what's for sale.
I'm announcing today that Canada will achieve NATO's 2% of GDP target this year, half a decade ahead of schedule.
A quiet shift happened this week. So quiet, most Canadians didn't even feel the floor move. Behind closed doors in Brussels and in sealed folders in Ottawa, a decision formed that would rewrite Canada's role in global security. And when it finally came to light, the scale was staggering. Canada had been invited into SAFE, Europe's newest multi-hundred billion euro defense alliance. A club no non-EU nation has ever been allowed to enter. That alone would have been stunning. But the shock grew tenfold when something else became clear. Canada is the only non-European country that Europe allowed in. Not the United Kingdom, with all its historic ties to the continent. Not Australia, the EU's closest Pacific partner. Not even the United States, Europe's longest strategic ally. None of them made the cut. Canada did. This wasn't a trade deal. It wasn't a symbolic act of friendship. It was a fundamental reorientation of how Europe intends to defend itself. And Canada is suddenly woven into the center of that strategy. SAFE doesn't just open the door to selling equipment. It places Canada directly inside Europe's long-term procurement plans, intelligence sharing, and defense coordination systems. It gives Canadian companies access to a market that's already worth more than 150 billion euros and is projected to explode past 1.3 trillion euros in the coming decade as Europe rearms, retools, and fortifies itself against a turbulent world. The seeds of this decision were planted months earlier, long before the public had any idea anything was in motion. Canadian officials entered negotiations so quietly that even many government insiders only heard whispers. SAFE, short for Security and Defense Action for Europe, is the EU's answer to a rapidly shifting global landscape. With Russia pushing aggression to levels not seen in decades, war reshaping Europe's borders, Middle Eastern instability sending ripples across global routes, and long-standing alliances being questioned, Europe realized it needed a new kind of security flexibility. Something durable, something that didn't depend on the political mood of Washington, or the internal arguments of NATO, or the economic pressures of any single nation. Europe needed suppliers it could trust for decades, not just election cycles, and in the end, it chose Canada. Quiet, stable, often underestimated, but reliable. Most Canadians didn't learn the details until recently, when Ottawa finally confirmed the negotiations had concluded. SAFE membership wasn't theoretical anymore. It was real. And the announcement came with a list of capabilities that Canada can now supply directly to Europe. Ammunition, drones, armored vehicles, infantry weapons, advanced guidance systems, missile components, artillery platforms, sensors, robotics, aerospace technologies, the full spectrum of modern military hardware. For Canadian industries, this isn't just another export channel. This is an open door into one of the world's largest purchasing pools. Companies that previously had to compete with bureaucratic walls or political restrictions can now bid on major European contracts. Defense firms in Quebec, steel manufacturers in Hamilton, robotics startups in Waterloo, aerospace engineers in Winnipeg, all of them suddenly have access to contracts they were previously shut out of. But as always happens when opportunity arrives quickly, the questions came with it. Reporters pressed the government. What is Canada paying to join SAFE? What's the entrance fee? How big is the bill taxpayers will eventually see? Is it hundreds of millions? Billions? And every time the question was thrown at them, Canadian officials dodged. The line was always the same. Negotiations are ongoing and details will be released in due course. That ambiguity fueled speculation, especially when leaks emerged suggesting the United Kingdom had abandoned its own bid after being told the entrance fee would be close to £6 billion. If that's true, why was Canada allowed in? Why did Europe open the door to Ottawa so easily while slamming it in London's face? The answer seems to come down to trust, a word used quietly by European negotiators but carrying enormous weight. Canada has something few countries can claim in this volatile era. A reputation for political stability. Not perfection, but predictability. Europe knows what it gets with Canada. Elections change governments, yes, but they don't usually throw the country into radical shifts or unpredictable foreign policy swings. Canada is steady, and steady is currency. There's also something else at play. Canadian defense companies have been quietly punching above their weight for years. The world pays attention to American giants like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon, but Canada has built a surprising and respected niche. From advanced drones to precision munitions to specialized radar systems, high-grade steel, armored vehicles, and some of the most sophisticated battlefield sensors on the market. Europe needed that innovation, it needed diversification, and it needed partners who wouldn't suddenly weaponize trade or impose export restrictions based on whichever party won the next election. Canada fit the bill. The implications for Canadian industry are enormous. Analysts are already calling SAFE the biggest defense opportunity Canada has ever had. Plants that once operated at modest capacity could soon be producing at levels not seen in decades. Private investment, long hesitant to enter Canada's tightly regulated defense sector, is now pouring in. Companies that struggle to scale suddenly see a €1 trillion horizon in front of them. Jobs will boom. Engineering positions, logistics, metallurgy, cybersecurity, robotics, high-tech fabrication, assembly lines for parts Canada has never produced before. Entire industries could emerge around SAFE's procurement needs. But the economic impact is only half the story. The geopolitical consequences are even larger. For decades, Canada's military and defense posture have been tied almost exclusively to the United States. Washington has been the primary buyer, the main partner, and the center of Canada's security gravity. SAFE doesn't break that bond, but it changes its shape. By joining Europe's defense ecosystem, Canada is no longer tethered to a single military customer. It now has leverage, it now has alternatives, and it now has influence in places where it previously only watched from the sidelines. Europe benefits too. With Canada on board, the EU has a reliable, democratic, geographically distant supplier that can't be disrupted by continental politics or sudden local pressures. That diversifies their risk. It also strengthens their long-term independence, something Europe has been seeking for years. This comes at a time when global power is shifting in unpredictable ways. The recent G20 summit, even without the United States formally attending, represented most of the world's population and trade. It sent a message. The world is moving in new directions, often without Washington in the driver's seat. Europe knows it, Canada knows it, and SAFE reflects that reality. For now, what's certain is this: Canada has gained something no other country outside Europe has ever received: a direct role in shaping Europe's defense future. It's a seat at a table that was previously locked. It's access to a procurement network that could define the next 50 years of military technology. It's leverage Canada hasn't had in generations. And the most striking part? Canada didn't force its way in. It didn't beg. It didn't bargain loudly or make public demands. It was invited. That alone says more about Canada's global reputation than any speech or slogan could. This deal marks a quiet but unmistakable turning point, not just for Canada's economy, but for its place in an increasingly unstable world. For the first time in a long time, Canada isn't simply following global shifts. It is part of shaping them. It is planting a foothold in Europe's future, economically, politically, and militarily. Whether Canadians embrace that role or debate its cost, one thing is certain: the world is changing fast. And Canada just stepped into a much bigger, more influential place within it.